I recently acquired a television from an antique store, intending to use it as a cool talking piece in my workshop. The TV was a 1950s Admiral brand, made in the USA, and had a really unique vintage feel to it. The salesman at the antique store said that he had it buried in a warehouse for decades, that it may not work, suggesting that I could take it off his hands for free, an offer to which I promptly agreed. After unfolding it from my pickup, I carried it into my workshop and began carefully disassembling it, before realizing I hadn't even tried testing it yet. I wasn't really expecting it to work, but to my pleasant surprise, the old CRT powered on, and after some tinkering, I managed to connect it to an old pair of rabbit ear antennas. The picture was fuzzy, but I could make out that a movie was playing on whatever channel I was tuned to. I squinted my eyes and began to make out the figure of a large ship sinking. I reached for the volume knob, enjoying this unexpected guessing game, and tried to determine which movie it was. The sound from the old TV speakers was scratchy, but I could hear the faint screams of people and what sounded like water splashing in the background. With a jolt of satisfaction, I yelled, "Titanic!" and leaned in closer, once again squinting, wondering what I could do to clear up the old black and white picture. Then suddenly, the picture became clear as day. Confusion washed over me as I studied the details on the screen. This was not the movie Titanic after all. I had seen the flick more than a handful of times, and I didn't recognize any of the scenes. Nor was there any dialogue. For over an hour, I sat glued to the screen, which never changed angles or displayed a single known actor. It didn't show anything except the lapping, frozen water and distant view of the massive ship capsizing. Finally, the camera angle began to turn, and I could make out a bearded man dressed in a white lab coat in what appeared to be a modern boat. He smiled, and several other people behind him, dressed similarly, waved into the lens. The picture abruptly became static again. I scratched my head and pulled out my phone, loading an image search of the Titanic. The ship I had been watching matched every detail I could make out. There was no doubt in my mind that the ship on the screen was indeed the Titanic. That night, I laid awake and convinced myself that what I had seen was some sort of documentary, and I had surely misinterpreted the imagery. There were, after all, a few surviving video clips of the Titanic sinking, so surely I'd happen upon some public or even private broadcast of such a clip. The next day, I returned to the workshop and switched the old TV back on, determined to get back to the task at hand. I was surprised to see that the black and white image was once again as clear as day. Without hesitation, I recognized the familiar sight of a masked plague doctor. The plague doctor was walking down an empty street littered with the dead and dying, occasionally stopping to comfort passerby and diseased victims. The scene lingered on for quite some time, once again with a fuzzy audio track of distant moaning and muffled cries for help. There was no indication that this was a documentary or movie, and once again, I was extremely puzzled. Out of frustration, I jiggled the rabbit ears, but the picture remained intact and clear. Even turning the old knobs had no effect. Just before the picture dropped out, I saw a man approach the lens. The same bearded man in a white lab coat. He proceeded to hold up an old Julian calendar, pointing to the date with a modern pen. I could barely make it out, but the calendar year read 1349. Without warning, the television screen became static once again. I puzzled over this for some time, eventually deciding to return the television to the antique store. I spoke to the same gentleman that had given me the TV and explained the situation. To be honest, I was beginning to become somewhat disturbed, and told him as much. The salesman vehemently refused to take the television back, insisting that if I didn't want it, I should just throw it away and let them take it. Unsure of how to take such a remark, I left the store in awkward silence and sat in my pickup for a while. Eventually, I resolved to take it back home and disassemble it. Worst case scenario, I end up with a bunch of old TV parts and a nice cabinet to throw away instead. About a half hour into taking the cabinet apart, I noticed what I can only describe to you as a metallic box lodged between the tube. The device had no markings, except for a stamp in the metal that read US Navy 1951. Having been fond of computers and electronics since childhood, I was confident that I'd never seen such a device in my life. Never in any store, catalog, or website. The device featured prominent hinges that opened to reveal a complex but outdated antenna system. Tracing the wires from the device, I came to the conclusion that it must be sending a signal to the TV screen, though where it was receiving such a signal from remained a mystery. I carefully removed the device and placed it on my workbench nearby. Moments later, my wife called me in for dinner, and I resolved to do more research the next day. That night, I awoke to the sound of a vehicle door slamming shut in my driveway. Assuming it was a burglar or vandal, I grabbed my handgun and a flashlight and rushed downstairs to intervene. I found the door to my workshop open and the light left on. My eyes drifted around before coming to a sudden stop. The TV and the device were gone, but nothing else seemed to be missing. It's been a year since this happened, and I still wonder whose brake lights I saw drifting into the distance that night. Should I report this to the authorities? I feel like I may have gotten lucky. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want to see more, let me know in the comments below, and tell me what you thought of this narration. Make sure to follow me on Twitter for updates, and if you'd like to get early videos, shoutouts, high-quality MP3 downloads of my narrations, and much, much more, I'd appreciate it if you check out my Patreon page. It's a place where you can help support my channel while getting awesome rewards in the process, and every pledge helps out a ton, no matter the size. So if you'd like to see all the rewards I offer and consider becoming a patron, it'd mean a ton to me if you'd click the link in the description and just check it out. And don't forget to show some love to the amazingly talented authors who make these narrations possible. Have a good night, everybody. Cheers.